This story is titled, My Adoptive Sister Falsely Accused Me, causing my parents to kick me out. But now that the truth is revealed, they're begging me to return and raise my nephew after she abandoned him. Hey Reddit, I need to get this story off my chest. I'm 27 now, but this all happened when I was 25. Everything in my family blew up about 2 years ago, and with some recent developments, I figured it was finally time to share the whole mess. It's a lot to process, so I'll probably post this in chunks. Back then, I was living at home while finishing my occupational therapy degree. I was busting my ass working part-time at a rehabilitation center while trying to keep my grades up in my final year. It wasn't easy, but I was managing to balance everything. Then my sister Jade, who was 30 at the time, moved back home after her divorce. She brought her daughter Mia, who was 7, along with her. Her ex-husband had cheated on her with some coworker, and afterward, she couldn't afford to maintain her own place. My parents were incredibly supportive about the whole situation. They even converted my dad's home office into a bedroom for Mia. Growing up, Jade and I were actually pretty close despite the 5-year age gap between us. She always had my back in school and would even let me hang out with her friends sometimes, which was a big deal when you're the younger sister. Everything changed when she got pregnant, though. She married her high school boyfriend when she was just 20, dropped out of college right after the wedding, and became a stay-at-home mom. After that, we barely saw each other except during holidays and family gatherings. When she moved back home after the divorce, I really tried my best to reconnect with her. I would watch Mia whenever she needed to run errands or go to job interviews. I invited her to hang out with me and my friends on weekends, and I even helped her create a dating profile when she mentioned feeling ready to move on. But there was something off about her behavior. She seemed incredibly bitter, and I would catch her giving me these weird looks whenever I talked about school or my future plans. Looking back, there were so many red flags that I completely missed at the time. She started acting really strange a few months after moving back in. Whenever my mom would ask about her job search, she'd get extremely defensive. She would disappear for hours on weekends, claiming she was at the library applying for jobs, but would return with absolutely no updates. She guarded her phone like it contained state secrets, always keeping it locked with a password, which was new behavior for her. I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured she was just stressed from the divorce and trying to navigate life as a newly single mom. I was focused on my own responsibilities, finishing my degree, working at the rehab center, and attempting to maintain some semblance of a social life with what little free time I had left. There were these moments, though, when I'd catch her giving me these strange looks whenever I talked about my future, or when our parents said something nice about my grades. Once, I overheard her on the phone saying, "She's always been mom and dad's favorite, but not for long." I'm pretty sure she was talking about me, which made absolutely no sense since I was working incredibly hard for everything I had achieved. One night, I came home from my shift at the rehab center around midnight and found Jade in Dad's office going through his desk drawers. When she saw me, she jumped like she'd seen a ghost and mumbled something about looking for stamps. It was weird, but I was too exhausted to think much about it at the time. I also started noticing small amounts of cash missing from my wallet. At first, I thought I was just spending more than I realized, but then I caught Jade coming out of my room one day when I came home early from class. She claimed she was borrowing a sweater, but nothing was in her hands. After that incident, I started hiding my wallet, but I never directly confronted her because I didn't want to cause drama when everyone was finally getting along. The week before everything went to hell, Jade asked me to take Mia for the whole weekend because she supposedly had job interviews out of town. I agreed even though I had a major project due. Mia and I had a great time together. She's such a sweet kid. But when Jade returned Sunday night, she had a new designer purse and shoes. When I asked about the interviews, she gave very vague answers and quickly changed the subject. Then came that fateful Sunday morning when everything exploded. I had worked late Saturday night and was sleeping in around 9 a.m. when I was suddenly awakened by screaming downstairs. At first, I thought Mia was throwing a tantrum, but then I heard my mom crying and my dad yelling. I ran downstairs in my pajamas to find my mom collapsed in her chair sobbing while my dad was red-faced, screaming at Jade. She was showing them something on her phone with this weird, satisfied look on her face. When they saw me, my mom started crying harder, and my dad looked at me with so much disgust I felt physically sick. Jade was claiming she'd found evidence that I'd been stealing money from our parents for months to pay for my tuition and partying. She showed them screenshots of what looked like bank transfers to my account and some receipts with my name on them. I stood there in complete shock as my parents and Jade stared back at me. My heart was racing so fast I thought it might burst out of my chest. "What is this?" Dad demanded, his face turning even redder as he pointed at the phone. $60,000 missing from our account. I don't understand, I stammered, trying to make sense of what was happening. Jade stepped forward with that smug little smile playing at the corner of her lips. I found something while using Mom's iPad, she said. All these transfers to your account. Want to explain? My stomach dropped as I glanced at the screen. The evidence looked convincing. Bank transfers with my name, dates, amounts. There were even text messages that looked like I'd sent them, confessing to taking the money. That's not real, I practically shouted. I never took any money from you guys. Those aren't even my texts. My mom wouldn't even look at me. She just sat there sobbing into her hands, her shoulders shaking uncontrollably. How could you do this to us? She whispered. Mom, I didn't. I swear on my life. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. This couldn't be happening. This is all fake, I pleaded. Please, you have to believe me. My dad's face was a storm of anger and disappointment. $60,000. Our retirement savings. Your own parents. His voice cracked slightly, which somehow hurt worse than if he'd continued yelling. I frantically pulled out my phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. Look, here are my bank statements, I said desperately. There are no deposits like that. You can see everything. Before my parents could even look, Jade shrugged casually. She probably has a secret account we don't know about, she said. That's what I would do. The way she said it, so calculated, so rehearsed, made my blood run cold. But my parents weren't seeing it. They weren't seeing anything beyond their own shock and hurt. I can't believe you'd betray the family like this, Dad said, his voice low and dangerous. I was full-on crying now, desperate for them to just listen to me. Please just call the bank, I begged. Check your actual statements. This isn't real. Why won't you at least investigate before believing the worst about me? Mom still wouldn't meet my eyes. She just kept mumbling through her tears. I raised a thief. What will we tell people? Dad pointed toward the stairs, his hand trembling slightly. You have 2 hours to pack your things and get out, he said coldly. No daughter of mine would steal from her own parents. Dad, please, I begged, my voice breaking. Mom, you've known me my whole life. Have I ever given you any reason not to trust me? Can we just talk about this? But it was like talking to a wall. Mom turned away completely, unable to even look at me. Dad just repeated, 2 hours, not a minute more, before walking out of the room. I stood there sobbing, watching my entire life crumble around me. And through my tears, I could see Jade watching the whole scene with that satisfied smile, like she just won some sick game I didn't even know we were playing. Through my tears, I called my best friend Nina. She came over right away to help me pack. I could only take what would fit in 2 suitcases, mostly clothes and important documents like my birth certificate and passport. As I was leaving, Jade had the nerve to hug me and whisper, "Don't worry about Mia. I'll make sure she's taken care of." The way she said it made my skin crawl, but I was too upset to process what she meant at the time. After my parents kicked me out, Nina and her parents let me stay in their guest room while I figured things out. My parents blocked my number and email immediately. They even blocked me on all social media. Like, who does that to their own kid without even investigating properly? Jade took it a step further and spread the story to our whole extended family. Within days, I was getting these horrible messages from aunts and cousins calling me a thief and saying how disappointed they were in me. My uncle even messaged me saying I should be ashamed of myself for stealing from people who gave me everything. It was like a freaking witch hunt. Only my grandma stood by me. She straight up told my parents she didn't believe Jade's lies because she knew what kind of person I was. My parents threatened to cut contact with her if she helped me, but she still secretly visited me and sometimes brought groceries. Grandma's a real one. The timing of all this couldn't have been worse. I was in my final semester with clinicals and exams coming up. I had to somehow find a place to live and work enough hours to support myself while finishing my degree. There were nights I legitimately cried myself to sleep, wondering why my sister would do this to me. Like, what did I ever do to deserve this level of betrayal? Nina's parents helped me get an apartment by co-signing my lease since I didn't have much credit history. I picked up extra shifts at the rehab center, sometimes working 40+ hours a week while doing clinicals. I was exhausted all the time, but I didn't have a choice. I had to eat and pay rent somehow. The worst part was all the random stuff I realized I didn't have after moving out. Like, I didn't have a freaking can opener or enough towels or sheets for my bed. All these little things you take for granted when you live at home. I was so broke that I was eating ramen for like 5 days straight sometimes. I lost about 15 pounds that first month after being kicked out. My professors were actually pretty understanding when I explained my situation. One of them even let me use the department's printer for free when I needed to print assignments because I couldn't afford a printer. My clinical supervisor let me adjust my hours so I could pick up more shifts at work. Small kindnesses like that kept me going during that terrible time. I graduated 6 months later. My parents and Jade didn't come, obviously. My grandma came early to avoid seeing them, and Nina's whole family was there cheering for me. It meant a lot, but it still hurt seeing all my classmates with their proud parents taking pictures while I had this weird makeshift family. I got hired full-time at a sports medicine clinic where I did my clinicals. The pay was decent enough that I could finally afford more than just ramen and rent. I even splurged and bought myself a used car so I didn't have to take the bus to work anymore. It was a piece of crap 2007 Toyota Corolla with 190,000 miles on it, but it was mine. About a month after I got kicked out, something weird happened. My grandma called me saying Jade had just up and left. Apparently, she told my parents she'd found an amazing job opportunity in another state and would send for Mia once she was settled. She took most of her stuff but left Mia behind with my parents. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Jade would call occasionally with excuses about why she couldn't send for Mia yet. The apartment fell through, the job wasn't as stable as she thought. She needed to find a good school district first. Always some excuse. That's when I realized what she meant when she whispered, "Don't worry about Mia. I'll make sure she's taken care of," as I was leaving. She had been planning to dump her kid with my parents all along. She just needed me out of the way first, so they'd have no choice but to take care of Mia. According to my grandma, my parents were stressed beyond belief trying to raise a 7-year-old again. Dad was close to retirement, and Mom had her church volunteer work. They weren't prepared to be full-time guardians of a second grader, but they stepped up because what else could they do? It's not like they could abandon their grandkid. I felt terrible for Mia. None of this was her fault, and now she'd lost both her dad through the divorce, and her mom had basically abandoned her. And she lost me too, her aunt who she was really close with. Sometimes I'd drive by my parents' house just to see if I could catch a glimpse of her playing outside. I never got out of the car, though. I was too afraid of running into my parents. Despite everything, I graduated on time with no family there except Grandma, who came early to avoid seeing my parents. Nina and her family cheered extra loud to make up for it, but it still stung seeing everyone else taking family photos while I stood there with my makeshift support system. I got hired full-time at the sports medicine clinic where I did my clinicals. I bought that crappy used Toyota that made weird noises but got me from point A to point B without having to take the bus. Life went on. I made new friends at work, I started dating again, and I was finally feeling like I had my life together when something unexpected happened. I met this guy I'll call Trevor. He came into the clinic for occupational therapy after a mountain biking accident that messed up his shoulder. He kept making these terrible jokes during our sessions like, "Is this what they call occupational therapy or torture? Because I can't tell the difference." I'd just roll my eyes every time. When he asked for my number after his final appointment, I actually thought he was just being friendly. But he called the next day and asked me out for coffee. We hit it off right away. He was easy to talk to, super considerate, and made me laugh even when I was having a bad day. I was hesitant to tell him about my family situation. Most guys run for the hills when they hear the word drama. But about 3 months into dating, it came up naturally when he asked about my childhood. I gave him the abbreviated version. Sister framed me for theft, parents kicked me out without investigating, sister abandoned her kid with them. Instead of backing away slowly, Trevor was absolutely furious on my behalf. He couldn't understand how parents could throw their kid out without even verifying the accusations. If someone accused my kid of something that serious, I'd at least check their bank statements before making them homeless, he said. His reaction made me feel validated in a way I hadn't before. Maybe I wasn't crazy for still being hurt and angry. Maybe what my parents did really was as messed up as it felt. After dating for about 8 months, Trevor suggested I try to see Mia again. He could tell how much I missed her from the way I talked about her. I was scared because seeing Mia meant potentially seeing my parents, and I wasn't sure I was ready for that. But Trevor had a good idea. He suggested I reach out to my grandma and see if she could arrange a meeting at a neutral place like a park or something. Grandma was thrilled with this plan. She'd been trying to get me to reconnect with Mia for months, saying the poor kid asked about me all the time. A week later, Grandma took Mia to the local ice cream shop for a special treat and texted me when they arrived. I was so nervous I almost threw up in the parking lot. Trevor squeezed my hand and said, "You got this. It's just a little kid who loves you." When I walked in and Mia saw me, she screamed and ran straight into my arms. She was 8 by then and had gotten so tall. She told me all about school and her friends and her new light-up sneakers, talking a mile a minute. I tried not to cry, but failed miserably. This little kid who I loved so much had been collateral damage in her mom's selfish games. Mia was so excited to meet Trevor too. She immediately started showing him all her stickers and asking if he liked dinosaurs. He said yes, smart man. By the end of our ice cream date, she was calling him Uncle Trevor, which made both of us have some complicated feelings. As we were leaving, Mia asked when she could see me again. I looked at my grandma, unsure what to say. Grandma suggested maybe we could do this again next week. I agreed immediately, and Mia made me pinky promise I wouldn't disappear again. That pinky promise changed everything. I realized I couldn't keep avoiding my parents if it meant missing out on Mia's life. She deserved better than that. She'd already been abandoned by her mom. She didn't need her aunt disappearing too, so I made a decision. I texted my dad that night. "I want to see Mia regularly. I'm willing to coordinate drop-offs and pickups if you are." His response came almost immediately. "We should talk in person. Come for dinner tomorrow." I stared at my phone for a long time. Dinner at their house? Was I ready for that? I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing. I'd do anything for that little girl, even face the people who threw me away without a second thought. Trevor offered to come with me for moral support, but I felt like I needed to do this alone. I was a nervous wreck driving over, almost turned around 3 times. When I finally pulled up to my parents' house, I just sat in the car for like 10 minutes, trying to calm down. There's something super weird about ringing the doorbell at the place where you grew up. Mom answered the door. She looked older somehow, even though it had only been about a year and a half. She went to hug me, but I stepped back. I wasn't ready for that yet. She got this hurt look on her face but tried to cover it with a smile. "Mia's been so excited all day knowing you were coming," she said. Like that was the only reason I was there. Which honestly it was. Mia came running down the stairs and tackled me in a hug. That little monkey could knock over a linebacker with her enthusiasm. Dad came in from the kitchen looking awkward as hell. He tried for casual, saying, "Dinner's almost ready." The weirdest part was how they were acting like this was just a normal family dinner. Like I hadn't been kicked out and cut off completely. Like they hadn't blocked my number in social media. Like they hadn't believed the absolute worst about me without a shred of evidence. We sat down to eat and they started with small talk. I gave short answers and focused on Mia, who was telling me about her science project on butterflies. Finally, after dinner, when Mia went to watch TV in the living room, Mom brought out coffee and Dad cleared his throat. "Here we go," I thought. "We want you to be part of Mia's life again," he said. "She misses you terribly." I nodded. "That's why I'm here. For her." Mom jumped in. "We've been thinking maybe you could take her sometimes on weekends. Give us a little break. It's been challenging raising a young child at our age." I almost laughed. They weren't asking me here to reconcile or apologize. They wanted a babysitter. "So you want me to help with Mia?" I said slowly. "But we're not going to talk about what happened? About how you threw me out without even checking if Jade's accusations were true?" Dad shifted uncomfortably. That was a difficult time for everyone. "Especially for me," I cut in. "I was homeless during finals. I was working double shifts while doing clinicals. I lost weight because I couldn't afford food. All because you couldn't be bothered to verify something before destroying my life." Mom's eyes welled up with tears. "Classic move. Cry so everyone focuses on comforting you instead of holding you accountable." "We made a mistake," Dad admitted. "We should have looked into it more. But you have to understand, the evidence seemed very convincing at the time." I shook my head. "No, I don't have to understand that. Parents are supposed to believe in their kids, or at least give them the benefit of the doubt. You didn't even give me a chance to defend myself." "What do you want from us?" Mom asked, sounding frustrated. "We're admitting we were wrong. What more do you want?" I realized then that they didn't get it. They thought saying "we made a mistake" was the same as a real apology. They thought I should just move on because they were willing to have me back in their lives. Like I should be grateful for the opportunity. "I want to be part of Mia's life," I said firmly. "I'll take her some weekends. But let's be clear. I'm doing this for her, not for you. This isn't reconciliation. This is me being there for a little girl who deserves better than what she's gotten from this family." The hurt on their faces would have bothered me once. Now I just felt tired. We worked out a schedule. I'd pick Mia up every other Saturday morning and bring her back Sunday evening. As I was leaving, Dad tried once more. "We're still your parents," he said. "We still love you." I looked him straight in the eye. "Parents don't do what you did. Love doesn't act the way you acted." Then I left, got in my car, and cried all the way home. Trevor was waiting at my apartment with ice cream and a shoulder to cry on. After I told him everything, he said something that really stuck with me. "You know you can have a relationship with Mia without having one with them. You're an adult. You get to decide what kind of contact you have with people who hurt you, even if they're family." He was right, and that's what I did over the next few months. I'd text my parents only about Mia logistics, pickup times, drop-offs, stuff she needed for our weekends together. Otherwise, I kept my distance emotionally. No family dinners, no holiday gatherings, just brief hellos and goodbyes at the door. About 6 months into this arrangement, Trevor proposed. We were hiking at this beautiful state park, and when we reached this amazing overlook with the whole valley spread out below us, he got down on one knee. When I called Nina to tell her, she screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. When I called my grandma, she cried happy tears and said she'd been praying I'd find someone who valued me properly after what my family put me through. I decided to tell my parents during a Mia pickup. When I arrived that Saturday, my mom immediately noticed the ring. "You're engaged?" she asked, surprised. I told her Trevor had proposed last weekend, and we were planning a spring wedding. My dad joined, offering a stiff congratulations. He seems like a nice young man. As I gathered Mia's things, my mom suggested a family dinner to celebrate. I ignored her and left. That night, as Mia snuck cheese while Trevor made pizza, she asked, "Now that you're getting married, will you be my mom instead of my aunt?" My heart clenched. "I'll always be your auntie, and Trevor will be your uncle for real. We'll be your family forever." She seemed satisfied, but her question lingered. After she fell asleep, Trevor and I agreed that no matter what happened with my parents, Mia would always have a stable, loving home with us. We had no idea things were about to get much more complicated. Things were going pretty well. I had my routine with Mia on alternating weekends. Trevor and I were planning our wedding for the spring, and I was keeping my interactions with my parents strictly business, just logistics about Mia, nothing personal. Then everything exploded again. It started with a text from my cousin Morgan. We'd been close growing up, but had drifted apart after the whole getting kicked out thing. She'd sided with my parents initially, then tried to apologize once she realized I might not have done what I was accused of. I'd been polite but distant. Her text said, "You need to see this. Call me ASAP." I was busy at work and ignored it. Then she sent another. "Seriously, it's about Jade. You need to see this." That got my attention. I called her on my lunch break. "Have you been on Instagram today?" she asked without saying hello. "No, why?" Jade's friend Vanessa had a complete meltdown online. She posted screenshots of text conversations with Jade from 2 years ago. About you. About what she did. My heart started racing. "What do you mean? What did she post?" "I'll send you the links. Just prepare yourself. It's bad." I went to the bathroom and locked myself in a stall before opening the links. What I saw made me physically ill. Vanessa had posted a series of screenshots of text conversations with Jade from around the time I got kicked out. There was Jade admitting she photoshopped fake bank statements to frame me for stealing, bragging about creating fake text messages where I supposedly confessed, explicitly stating she was planning to dump the kid with mom and dad once I was out of the picture, and worst of all, laughing about how easily my parents believed her accusations without checking anything. It was all there in black and white, proof of her calculated betrayal. The most damning message read, "Parents totally bought it, LOL. They kicked her out same day. Didn't even check the bank or anything. Now I just need to set up my escape plan and I'll be free of all this family bullshit." I sat on that bathroom floor for what felt like hours, shaking. Here it was, proof of what I'd known all along. Jade had deliberately framed me to get me out of the way so she could abandon Mia with our parents. By the time I walked out of that bathroom, my phone was blowing up. Other cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone had seen the screenshots. They were all sending me messages of support and shock. The same people who'd called me a thief 2 years ago were now falling over themselves to say they always knew something wasn't right about Jade's story. I left work early, too rattled to focus. When I got home, I found my normally calm, level-headed Trevor absolutely livid after seeing the screenshots that were now circulating through all my social media. "You need to send these to your parents," he said. "They need to see what she did." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to rub it in their faces. "See, I told you." But another part was afraid of what would happen next. Would they expect forgiveness now? Would they think proof somehow erased what they'd done? Before I could decide, my phone rang. It was my dad. "Have you seen what's going around online?" he asked, voice strained. "Yes," I said simply. "We need to talk. Can you come over?" "I don't think that's a good idea right now." "Please," he said, and his voice broke a little. We need to talk about this in person." Against my better judgment, and with Trevor insisting on coming with me, I went to my parents' house that evening. Grandma was there too, sitting with Mia in the living room while the adults talked in the kitchen. My parents looked shell-shocked. Mom had clearly been crying, and Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. They both started talking at once when I walked in. We had no idea. If we'd known. "We can't believe she would." I held up a hand to stop them. "I told you she was lying. I begged you to check the bank statements. I showed you my own accounts. You chose not to believe me." Dad looked down at his hands. "We were wrong. Completely wrong." I waited for more, for an actual apology, for some acknowledgement of the harm they'd caused. But nothing came. Instead, Mom said, "But you have to understand, the evidence looked so real." "No," I cut her off. "I don't have to understand anything. What I understand is that you threw me out with 2 hours' notice during my final semester of college. What I understand is that you blocked my number and my email so I couldn't even defend myself. What I understand is that you believed the worst about me without any investigation whatsoever." "We made a mistake," Dad said weakly. "A mistake?" I laughed bitterly. "What you did was a choice. Multiple choices, actually. And those choices showed me exactly where I stand with you." Trevor squeezed my hand under the table, a silent show of support. "What do you want us to say?" Mom asked, tears in her eyes. "We're sorry, we were wrong. What more can we do?" I looked at her. They weren't sorry for what they'd done to me. They were sorry they'd been fooled. They were sorry they looked bad to the family now. They were sorry they'd been played. But they weren't actually sorry for how they treated me. "You know what?" I said slowly. "There's nothing you can say. Because this isn't actually about Jade. Yes, she lied. Yes, she manipulated you. But you chose to believe her without evidence. You chose to throw me out. You chose to cut all contact. Those were your choices, and they showed me exactly who you are as parents." Dad's face hardened. "That's not fair. We were victims of Jade's lies too." "The difference," I said, standing up, "is that you had a choice. I didn't. You chose to believe the worst about your daughter without any proof. What kind of parents do that?" I turned to leave, but Mom grabbed my arm. "What about Mia?" she asked. "She needs you." "Don't worry, I'll still see Mia. I'll still take her on weekends. But this changes nothing between us. You haven't actually apologized for what you did to me. You've only expressed regret for being tricked." "So that's it?" Dad asked. "You're just going to cut us off after we admitted we were wrong?" "Admitting you were wrong isn't the same as apologizing for the harm you caused," I said quietly. "And even if you did apologize sincerely, that clearly doesn't obligate me to forgive you or pretend everything's okay now." I walked out with Trevor right behind me. We stopped in the living room to say goodbye to Mia and Grandma, promising to see them that weekend as planned. As we drove home, Trevor asked if I was okay. I wasn't. Not really. Having the truth finally come out should have felt vindicating, but mostly I just felt sad. The next few weeks were chaotic. Jade had apparently seen Vanessa's posts and deleted all her social media accounts. According to my grandma, she called my parents in a rage, accusing them of turning everyone against her and threatening to come take Mia. They had responded by filing for emergency guardianship of Mia, using the screenshots as evidence of Jade's intent to abandon her child. Meanwhile, the wedding plans continued. Trevor and I found a beautiful mountain resort for the ceremony and reception. His parents were incredibly supportive, offering to help with costs and planning. My grandma was thrilled and immediately volunteered to help with whatever we needed. When it came time to send out invitations, Trevor asked the question I'd been dreading. "What about your parents?" I thought long and hard about it. I decided not to invite them. It wasn't about punishment. It was about having people at our wedding who truly loved and supported us. People who had stood by me when things got tough, not just when it was easy or convenient. I wrote them a letter explaining my decision. "I've thought a lot about whether to invite you to the wedding. I've decided that I can't. This day is about celebrating love and commitment with people who have shown those qualities consistently. While I will continue to maintain a relationship with you for Mia's sake, I'm not ready to pretend we're a happy family. The truth is, you hurt me deeply, not just by believing Jade's lies, but by how quickly and completely you cast me aside, by how little investigation you did before deciding I was guilty, by how you blocked me from defending myself. Those actions showed me where I stand with you, and they can't be undone by Vanessa's screenshots. I hope you can respect my decision and not try to insert yourselves into this event. I will continue to see Mia as arranged. I sent the letter and braced myself for the fallout. It came swiftly. Dad called, furious. So this is your revenge? Excluding us from your wedding after we admitted we were wrong? I said calmly, it's a boundary. I'm inviting people who make me feel safe and loved. You don't qualify. I'm your father. I have the right to walk my daughter down the aisle. You gave up that right when you threw me out with 2 hours' notice and blocked my number for over a year. Mom got on the phone next, crying about how they'd suffered enough and how I was being deliberately cruel by excluding them from this important day. They didn't take it well. For the next few weeks, they tried everything. Guilt trips, anger, sending other family members to plead their case. But I didn't budge. This was one area where I wasn't willing to compromise. Trevor's parents, bless them, offered to hire security for the wedding, just in case my parents decided to show up uninvited. No one should have to worry about family drama on their wedding day, his mom said kindly. Wedding day finally arrived after weeks of planning. Everything was perfect. Beautiful mountain venue, Mia practicing her flower girl duties, Grandma ready to walk me down the aisle. Trevor's parents arranged security just in case, which turned out to be 100% necessary. An hour before the ceremony, my phone blew up with texts from Trevor's mom. Your parents are here. They're demanding to be let in. Your dad is insisting he's walking you down the aisle. I called her immediately. Turns out my parents showed up with Jade, who apparently flew in from Florida just for this. They were telling security there was a misunderstanding and that they were expected guests. Dad was threatening to call the police, claiming we were kidnapping Mia. Complete BS. Grandma had written permission. I told security not to let them anywhere near the venue and to call police for trespassing if necessary. I wasn't about to let them ruin my day. The ceremony started 20 minutes late, but was perfect otherwise. Trevor's dad walked me down the aisle. Mia scattered petals everywhere, mostly on guests, not the aisle. And Trevor's face when he saw me is a memory I'll cherish forever. Right as we were pronounced husband and wife, my dad somehow got past the first security checkpoint and started yelling about father's rights and how he should be the one giving me away. Trevor's cousins, former football players, intercepted him before he got far. Talk about pathetic timing. The reception was amazing. Just people who genuinely cared about us celebrating together. I found out later that my parents and Jade tried to crash that too and were escorted off the property, with my dad still yelling about how they deserve to be there and Jade filming everything on her phone. A month later, they tried to terminate my visitation rights with Mia through their lawyer, claiming I was an unstable influence with unresolved anger. They made up total lies about me bad-mouthing them to Mia and being erratic. Trevor's family lawyer assured us their case had no merit since I documented everything. They dropped it when they realized we'd fight back with evidence. Their next move was showing up unannounced at our house during their time with Mia, trying to guilt me into letting them in. After the third time, Trevor installed cameras, and we implemented a strict no unscheduled visits policy. It's been 6 months since the wedding. I still see Mia every other weekend, but pickups and drop-offs happen at Grandma's to avoid my parents. Jade's back in Florida, calling Mia maybe once a month for 5-minute conversations. Sometimes I still get angry about everything. How they threw me away based on lies, never truly apologized, tried to make my wedding about them, and used Mia as a weapon. But mostly I feel sad for them. They'll never know their grandchild because they chose pride over a relationship with their daughter. That sadness doesn't mean I'll let them back in. I've built a good life without them. Loving husband, successful career, strong bond with Mia, deeper relationship with Grandma, and in-laws who treat me more like family than my parents ever did. Sometimes the family you build is stronger than the one you're born into.